Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm finally ready to do my full review on this wonderful little ZT model. So this one is the 452CF. There's a 0 in front of it. I've learned you're not supposed to say the 0. The 0 is reserved for their special 4-digit ones or something. So this is the 452CF, and this knife was actually loaned to me by my buddy Jeff over at Cutlery Shoppe, and I'll link down below to Cutlery Shoppe. They are one of my preferred retailers, to say the least. Really cool people over there. Jeff in particular is just fantastic to deal with, and I'm glad that he's become a friend at this point. So this is his personal knife, and it was a bit of a user for him, so I was allowed to go ahead and carry and use this to my heart's content while it's been here. In fact, I was going to finish up this review a couple of weeks ago before going on my trip to Portland, but I reached out to Jeff and I said, hey, I'm going to shoot your review tomorrow so that I can get it in the mail before I leave on my trip. And he was like, dude, take all the time you want, take it with you to Portland, carry it a whole bunch there, like keep on using it, and no rush. So now that I've been back for a little bit, I've kept putting this in pocket a whole bunch of times. I've carried it a lot, I've cut with it a lot, and I feel like I've got a really good sense of kind of what this knife is all about. So this one is a Sinkovich design. I've made the mistake before of saying something was a Sinkovich design when it wasn't. The 707, I think it's called, is not a Sinkovich design, but looks like it to me. Anyways, this one actually is. It says on the blade, Sinkovich design, right there. So, not lying to you. This one's an S35VN, and yeah, so the way I understand it, this is actually the larger version. There's 2 of this knife, and I've seen the other one as well, the 450. I've handled that one, the smaller one, and then this is just a scaled up version of it. So if this knife is way too big for you, I would imagine a lot of things that I say here are probably going to be true about the regular 450 as well, the smaller version. It's just going to be scaled down. That said, I haven't experienced that one in terms of like anything more than just holding one, so I don't have much experience with it. But yeah, let's talk about construction, and then I'll just kind of go through what conclusions I've come to on this. The waterfall is running back there right now, which is exciting. It's been dry for a long time, and something like a log or something just went down it. Anyway, alright, so materials-wise, we're looking at a blade of S35VN, which I already said, satin finish. It's a pretty nice belt satin. I really like the grind lines on it. I think it looks nice. We have a carbon fiber show scale because this is the CF version of the knife. And then we have a titanium lock side. It's a frame lock. It does have a lock bar insert, which also functions as an over travel stop. Yep, I'm not crazy. The knife runs on bearings, and it's a nice smooth deployment. It's got a pretty crispy detent. I like the action on it, but yeah, it's a loop over style deep carry clip. I do wish it came just all the way to the end. I always gripe about that, but I wish deep carry clips sat deep. That's a thing that I prefer. So yeah, carbon fiber, titanium, S35VN. I would imagine, I know that ZT has done a bunch of variants of this knife. This is the CF version, but there's a full titanium one. They've probably done different color anodes or something. I don't know. Knowing ZT, they've probably done a few variants of this over the years. And I would imagine some of those might have different blade steels. They obviously don't all have carbon fiber, so there are options if this one isn't your flavor of choice. But yeah, so let's jump in. Let's start with ergos. I think that's a really good place to start on here. Something I've said, I think, in previous videos, even of this knife. Oftentimes, for me, I wear medium-sized gloves. I don't have tiny hands, but I don't have huge hands either. I fill out my medium gloves real well. For me, oftentimes, knives with like a 4-inch blade, which is, I think, what we're working with here. I haven't specifically measured it, but it seems like a solid 4 to me. Oftentimes, knives with blades that long, unless the handle is super neutral, like no shaping on it, I find that oftentimes they don't work that well for me ergonomically, because when there are finger grooves, I feel like on big knives, oftentimes the finger grooves are cut too big for my hands. On here, however, it fits my hand really well, and it does have finger grooves. Like if you look, there's kind of a primary groove up here, and then it comes into like this little bulge section, and then there's another groove back here, and I just get, like, my fingers line up really well with the grooves they've put on here. ZT seems to kind of do that for me. Like, I think it was the 609 I had a pretty dramatic finger groove, and it just like, it felt kind of molded for my hand. So whoever's designing handles at ZT, although this is Sinkovich design, I don't know, whoever's making this happen, it fits my hand well. So ergonomically, in a saber grip, it's very good. I really, really like this knife in a saber grip. Hammer grip as well, it's just excellent. The handle is like fairly slim. It's not so thick this way, but it just kind of bulges in the right spots, and it does feel like I'm locked into it, and that I'm getting a good amount of purchase. It's nice. I like it. So saber grip, hammer grip are both good. Reverse grip is good as well. I really like it in a reverse grip. I like that I've got a good spot to put my thumb back here. That feels nice. Draw cut, very good. No complaints there. Reverse grip draw cut, that's fine. This is probably the least used grip. I'm going to keep on testing it because I'm testing grips. But yeah, reverse grip draw cut is just fine. So yeah, ergonomically it's a win. I like that there's no like aggressive jimping anywhere. Everything is nice and smooth. The CF scale is just like, it's got a little bit of kind of natural texture, just like the epoxy or whatever they finish it with, but it's not like, it's not gritty, you know, it just has, it's a naturally kind of grippy material on its own, and they didn't add grip to it. I like that. The only jimping on the knife is going to be right up here, and it's not super aggressive. It's not trying to shred my finger. It doesn't bother me one bit. I don't mind that it's there at all. I guess there's a little bit on the flipper tab as well, but even when the knife is open and my finger's kind of running into that, it's not bothering my knuckle, and it is nice for deployment to have that jimping there, because it helps you get a little more purchase on the flipper tab. So yeah, ergos are good. I really like this knife ergonomically. Let's talk about the action for a second. So like I said, it is running on bearings. I should confirm that, shouldn't I? I've just guessed that it's running on bearings this whole time. Can't quite really see in there so good. Yeah, it's on bearings. Yes. So yeah, it's on bearings, and it's flipper only. There's no other method of deployment, which, like, for a while I feel like I had too many flippers in my collection, and I got a little bit sick of them. I feel like the market was just producing a lot of like bearing flippers for a while too, and now luckily I feel like in 2020 there was like kind of a surgence of knives with holes, which is my favorite, and front flippers, which are a lot of fun, and like button locks, and there's a lot of stuff coming out that wasn't just flippers on bearings. But for a while I was kind of like, I don't want to say sick of them, but I wanted more variety in my collection. And now when I look at my collection, I feel like I actually don't have all that many just flipper only knives. I certainly have some. It's not like I have none, but I'm not like resistant to them like I was at one point, because when I felt like I had too many of them, it was like, oh, another flipper. I don't want it just because it's a flipper. But now flippers are fun. I get why they're a popular deployment method. I prefer them to thumb studs by a little, and when they're dialed in well, they work great. So on this one, it's certainly not drop shutty, as you can see, but deployment is really snappy. And I think something about having a long blade, especially with a flipper, I guess, you just get this cool, like, the way that it like fulcrums out, if that's even the right term. I'm not a physicist. However you describe that, the momentum that it gets, the arc that it achieves as it flies out when you've got a long blade, it just feels extra cool. And yeah, it's smooth. This one hand operation obviously is totally fine. It's not a drop shut dream, but it's smooth on closure. It's just nice. It's very like usable, right? This isn't a knife that I would consider like a fidget king. If I'm gonna like sit at my desk and I want to be fidgeting with a knife just for the sake of fidgeting with a knife, probably not gonna be the one I reach for. But if this is the knife in my pocket and I pull it out to fidget with it, it's not a total bore either. Like, it's good. One thing, you might be hearing a little bit of a ting, and this knife is just used and has been carried a ton, and the clip is like the tiniest bit loose. I'm sure it could be swapped around, bent down a little bit again, swapped back, and it would be totally fine. But I don't know if Jeff even cares, and I don't either, because it's still retaining in pocket pretty well. Speaking of which, let's talk about carry. I honestly didn't mean to make that segue, but it just happened. So, in terms of carry, this knife, for how much blade length and cutting edge you get and all that, I feel like the carry is really, really good. So the profile in general is just nice and slim. The fact that you've got a carbon fiber show scale definitely brings the weight down. The other side is titanium, which isn't crazy heavy either. They don't do any internal milling, but it's also not like crazy thick scale material anyways, and everything is pretty contoured on the outside. So yeah, I mean, it's lightweight, certainly, for its blade length, and for just overall how big this knife is. I feel like it's nice and light. And the profile is just nice and slender. Like, skinny knives this way and skinny knives this way just equal really comfortable carry, in my opinion. It's long, sure, so if you have like shallow pockets, it might not be great, but in any pair of pants or shorts that I've put this in, it's carried very, very well. The clip, like I said, has good retention. It's not sliding and slipping around. I like that ZT oftentimes uses really small clips. I'm not sure why so many people use such big clips. I feel like it's just kind of the norm, but I like that it's a little clip on here, and especially with it being such a big knife, it looks even smaller. But that's all the clip you need. Like, the clip is just to keep the knife in your pocket where it goes when you're storing it there. That's the only real function it serves most of the time. So I like that it's a pretty minimalist little clip there. Again, I would prefer for it to be a little deeper carry. I would imagine there are probably some aftermarket options that might go a little deeper, but I haven't looked, so I don't know for sure. But yeah, carry is nice. Extra points for how light it is and how slim it is, because this much blade, for how comfortable to carry it is really impressive. Like, this is a super capable blade. Another segue. Let's talk about cutting performance. I'm being so cheesy on this one. I'm sorry. So the cutting performance on this guy, I've been thrilled with. This is, it's still got a good sharp edge on it. I doubt it's the factory edge with how much Jeff has used and carried this and all that, but it's stayed nice and sharp. This S35VN has done well for me. I've done quite a bit of cutting with it. I've processed a lot of cardboard, like a lot of the post-Christmas cardboard from all of the gifts and everything, to process it for the dumpster. Did a lot of it with this, and it just ate it up. Did really, really well. I've opened a bunch of packages with it. I've done zip ties with it. One thing I really like about the blade specifically is how precise of a tip you get. And it's just a real simple drop point, right? Like, there's nothing crazy happening with this blade, but it's just really usable. You've got a nice flat section here, nice gradual little belly right there. You come to a nice precise tip, but it's not like a super fragile tip either. It carries a good amount of material out to it. I think what's interesting about how they did that is if you look at this swedge, the swedge actually terminates and then it gets thick again for the tip, which is smart. You've got this swedge up here, which I think looks good, and overall will probably enhance a little bit of the piercing ability of the blade, but the fact that they let it get thick again out to the tip, like if you look at that kind of spine profile, comes back out, gets thick again. I like that. It's smart. So yeah, it's not like a laser beam, super thin, slicey blade. It's a flat grind that doesn't come up crazy high, but it's very usable. Like, for the average EDC user, it feels really capable. I think part of it is the size. Like, if I compared this to my Para 3 and how well it'll actually like process cardboard and stuff, this wouldn't actually do better, because like at a certain point having all that extra blade on there, right, is like, I'm not using that for a lot of the cutting tasks that I do. It's rare that I do a cutting task with a folding knife that I actually need 4 inches of edge for. Like, it just doesn't happen all that often, right? And this, if you look at it, it really truly has, the edge starts like right in line with where the scale starts. So if you're going by blade length, that's a lot of cutting edge. And it's confidence inspiring, but I don't know how often I actually like need it. That said, with how convenient this is to carry and how comfortable it is, like, why not have it? You know, like, it's certainly cooler that it's bigger. There's something about having more blade, like, that feels good. And yeah, I just personally don't have all that many like tasks that come up where a 3-inch blade couldn't do it, but a 4-inch blade could with my EDC knives. If it's like, if you're talking kitchen knives or something, then like, yeah, blade length can be very important. If I'm cutting a watermelon open, then I can't use a paring knife because I just won't make it all the way through. But for cutting cardboard, zip ties, threads off my clothes, opening mail, cutting tape, like that kind of stuff, the amount of blade length isn't that important. So, anyway, I'm off in the weeds now, aren't I? I really like the blade. I feel like it's an appropriate thickness behind the edge for the type of knife that it is. Could it be a little thinner? Sure. Maybe bring that flat grind up a little bit more. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but it slices quite well. The tip is probably my favorite part of how it performs because I do enjoy a nice precise tip that I can kind of get into things. That's what she said, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I really, really have enjoyed cutting with this knife because it just feels very kind of tool-like. And I don't know, there's some knives that feel more like artistic than others, and there's some knives that just feel like, I don't know, this one has a sense where it's, I kind of think of like the Spyderco knives that are backlocks and that have like plastic scales. I'm not generally a big fan of, but I feel like they make great like tool knives. Like they feel sturdy and robust, and like they're tools, you can trust them. They don't feel dressy or showy at all. And this one's interesting because it is, like, compared to those, it's definitely, like, kind of dressy and showy and gentlemanly and whatever you want to call it. Although I wouldn't classify this as a gentleman's knife. But compared to FRN, like, this is really nice, right? But the sensation I get when I'm holding it and when I'm using it is, like, kind of the same as those knives in the sense that it feels like a tool. It doesn't feel, like, over the top in any way. It doesn't feel... yeah, it just doesn't feel overdone. So yeah, I've been really impressed with this knife. I think of the ZTs that I've reviewed in the last while, this is probably my favorite one. Even compared to the ZTs I own. Like, I have the ZT 0350, which at this point basically never gets carried because it's assisted opening, and I just don't like that. And then I have the 0620, which is a fun knife, but it has the Emerson Wave, which I'm not crazy about, and I like that knife, but I'm not, like, compared to the other things in my collection, I'm not, like, loving it right now either. Then I have the 308, which is, like, I'll carry that if I'm feeling like carrying something huge and ridiculous, but this feels like a cool balance for ZT, where it feels like it still kind of has some of the old ZT in it, where it's definitely big, it definitely feels a little bit kind of overbuilt, but it's, like, kind of the bridge between that and some of their new stuff that a lot of people complain that they've lost their soul by making. So yeah, I'm impressed with how I've kind of come down on this one at the end. Come down is the wrong word. I'm impressed with where I've ended up on this one because I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. And it was one of those things where, like, even right out of the box, I thought it was nice. I've never really handled a ZT that I didn't think was nice. They were all well made, but I didn't think I was going to, like, enjoy carrying it and enjoy using it. I thought it was going to be like, I'll keep it in my pocket enough that I'll get ready to review it. Great. But instead, like, I found myself enjoying carrying this. I found myself wanting to reach for it and put it in my pocket, and it was a pleasure to carry it and cut with it and use it, and it just feels ultra capable and it's balanced well. So I guess that'll be that. Sorry, this one was probably a little all over the place, but which of my videos isn't? Anyway, this is the ZT 452 CF. Thank you again to Jeff Lawfer over at Cutlery Shoppe. I will link to Cutlery Shoppe down below. If you haven't checked out Cutlery Shoppe before, definitely do. I know, as of when I'm filming this, I don't know if they're in yet, but they're about to get a bunch of new Cut Club cases. And so I think they're doing other colors this time and stuff. I have the 40-slot Cut Club knife case right now, the orange one, the first one, and it is freaking sweet. So, yeah, they do cool stuff. Cool Spyderco exclusives. They've got cases. They carry a bunch of different stuff in inventory, ZTs included, and, yeah, they're great people to buy from. So check them out if you haven't already, and thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one.